Most people misunderstand freedom. They imagine it as the absence of rules, the absence of structure, the absence of constraint. They picture a life where nothing is demanded of them, where impulse is sovereign, where desire dictates direction. And at first glance, that seems attractive. No pressure, no expectations, no discipline, just comfort and choice. But look closely at a life without structure, and you will not find freedom. You will find chaos. You will find unfinished tasks. You will find anxiety disguised as flexibility. You will find a mind constantly negotiating with itself, drifting from one distraction to another, mistaking movement for progress. And beneath all of that, you will find a quiet dissatisfaction because human beings are not designed for aimless indulgence. We are designed for ordered striving. Ordered striving. Discipline is not the enemy of freedom. Discipline is the architecture that makes freedom possible. If you cannot control your impulses, they will control you. If you cannot direct your attention, it will be captured by whatever is loudest. If you cannot delay gratification, you will trade long-term meaning for short-term relief again and again, until relief itself becomes empty. Real freedom is not doing whatever you want in the moment. Real freedom is the ability to act in alignment with what you have decided matters most, even when you don't feel like it. That is a far higher form of freedom. Consider something simple. You wake up in the morning. There is a version of you that wants comfort. Stay in bed, scroll, delay, and there is another version of you that understands the day has demands. There is work to be done. There are responsibilities waiting. There is a future that is quietly shaped by what you choose in the next hour. If you obey the first voice every day, you will feel temporarily comfortable but increasingly constrained. Your tasks accumulate, your stress rises, your confidence weakens, you begin to avoid even more. And soon, what felt like freedom becomes suffocation. But if you obey the second voice, even when it is quieter, something different happens. You stand up, you begin, you complete one small task, then another, and gradually the day becomes organized. Your mind becomes clearer. The background noise of avoidance fades. You experience relief, not because nothing was demanded of you, but because you met the demand. Discipline reduces internal conflict. When you have already decided who you are and what you do, you spend less time arguing with yourself. You don't wake up and negotiate whether you are the type of person who trains, studies, prepares, shows up. You simply act accordingly. The negotiation disappears, and negotiation is exhausting. Every unmade decision consumes energy. Every postponed responsibility lingers in the background of your thoughts. You might think you are resting, but you are not at peace. You are merely delaying, and delay accumulates psychological weight. Discipline removes that weight before it multiplies. It begins in small places. It begins with order. There is something profoundly stabilizing about putting your environment in order, cleaning your space, organizing your desk, making your bed. These actions seem trivial. They are not. They are physical declarations that chaos does not get the final word in your immediate surroundings. When you organize your environment, you send a message to yourself. I am not helpless. I can influence my reality. And that message builds confidence. Because confidence is not built through affirmation. It is built through evidence. Evidence that you can set a standard and meet it. Evidence that you can create structure and maintain it. Evidence that you can impose order where disorder once reigned. Discipline is the repeated act of setting a standard and honoring it. It is waking up at the time you decided, not the time you felt like. It is completing the task you scheduled, not the one that feels easiest. It is telling the truth when exaggeration would be more comfortable for you. It is choosing preparation over improvisation. And each time you do that, you strengthen the part of yourself that governs your life rather than reacts to it. And many people say they want freedom, but what they truly want is escape. Escape from effort, escape from discomfort, escape from responsibility. But escape does not produce strength. It produces fragility. The disciplined person is not fragile because discipline prepares you for resistance. It prepares you for difficulty. It prepares you for the inevitable unpredictability of life. When you practice self-control in small, voluntary ways, You develop the capacity to endure larger, involuntary challenges. If you cannot deny yourself unnecessary pleasure, how will you endure necessary pain? Life will ask more of you than comfort ever will. It will demand patience, resilience, sacrifice. If you have trained yourself only in ease, those demands will feel unbearable. But if you have trained yourself in discipline, you will not be shocked by difficulty. You will be ready for it. Discipline is rehearsal for adversity, and in that sense, it is protective. Look at any area of life that functions well: health, relationships, career, finances. Each one responds positively to consistent, disciplined action. None of them flourish under chaos. You cannot randomly invest and expect stability. You cannot randomly communicate and expect trust. You cannot randomly eat and expect vitality. Consistency is the hidden engine behind competence. And competence produces confidence. When you know you are competent, fear decreases, not because risk disappears, but because you trust your ability to respond. And that trust is the foundation of freedom. Freedom from constant anxiety, freedom from dependence on mood, freedom from being controlled by impulse. A disciplined life narrows your options in the short term so that your options expand in the long term. That is the paradox most people fail to understand. Ooh. When you commit to training regularly, you lose the freedom to skip whenever you want, but you gain the freedom of health, energy, strength. When you commit to saving and investing wisely, you lose the freedom of reckless spending, but you gain the freedom of security and opportunity. Short-term restriction creates long-term expansion. Undisciplined living feels wide but shallow. Disciplined living feels narrow but deep, and depth sustains you when circumstances shift. There is also a moral dimension to discipline. When you are disciplined, others can rely on you. You become predictable in the best possible way. Your word carries weight. Your commitments mean something, and trust begins to form around you. Trust creates relational freedom. When people trust you, they grant you autonomy. They grant you responsibility. They grant you opportunity. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it through consistent behavior. And that consistency is discipline made visible. Without discipline, your identity fractures. You say one thing and do another. You intend one thing and perform another. Over time, that gap erodes your self-respect. You begin to doubt your own intentions because history has shown you that you do not follow through. But discipline closes that gap. It aligns intention with action, and alignment reduces shame. Most hidden shame comes from misalignment, from knowing what you should do and failing repeatedly to do it. Each failure whispers, "You are not who you claim to be." Discipline answers that whisper with action. It says, "Watch me," and slowly the internal narrative shifts. You no longer see yourself as someone who tries. You see yourself as someone who completes. You no longer see yourself as someone who wishes. You see yourself as someone who builds. That shift changes posture. It changes posture. It changes tone. It changes presence. A disciplined person walks differently, speaks differently, decides differently, not because they are superior, but because they are integrated. Integration is powerful. When your habits, values, and actions align, you experience internal coherence, and coherence produces calm. You are not scattered. You are not fragmented. And as fragmented, you are focused. Focus multiplies effort. 1 hour of focused, disciplined work often accomplishes more than 5 hours of distracted effort, and that realization is transformative. Because once you taste the efficiency of discipline, distraction loses its glamour. Distraction promises relief. Discipline delivers results, and results reinforce discipline. There is also humility in discipline. It acknowledges that you are not above structure, that you require routine, that you are susceptible to weakness. Instead of pretending otherwise, you build safeguards. You create schedules. You set boundaries. You limit exposure to what derails you. That is not rigidity, it is wisdom. You do not test your willpower endlessly. You design your life so that willpower is required less frequently. You create habits that run automatically in your favor. You reduce friction around good behavior and increase friction around destructive behavior. This is strategic discipline to discipline. It is not about constant strain. It is about intelligent structure. And structure liberates attention. When your day has rhythm, your mind has space. You are not constantly deciding what comes next. You know what comes next. That certainty frees cognitive energy for creativity, problem solving, deeper thinking. Paradoxically, discipline enhances spontaneity because it protects your core responsibilities. When those are handled, you can enjoy flexibility without anxiety. If nothing is stable, spontaneity becomes recklessness. But if stability is established, spontaneity becomes joy. So, discipline is not about suppressing life. It is about protecting what matters so that life can be enjoyed without collapse. There will be days when discipline feels heavy, when motivation is absent, when the path of least resistance whispers seductively. In those moments, remember this: every act of discipline is a vote for the person you are becoming, not the person you feel like in that moment, the person you are constructing over years. And construction requires repetition, brick by brick, habit by habit by habit, hour by hour. You do not become free in a single dramatic decision. You become free through thousands of small disciplined actions that accumulate into identity. And once identity stabilizes, freedom expands. Because now you are not controlled by the immediate. You are guided by the intentional. You are not reacting to every stimulus. You are choosing responses aligned with purpose. That is psychological freedom, the freedom to endure discomfort without collapsing, the freedom to delay gratification without resentment, the freedom to act according to principle rather than impulse. And in a world saturated with distraction, that freedom is rare. So begin where you are. Do not attempt radical transformation overnight. Establish one disciplined practice. Guard it all. Honor it. Then add another. Let structure grow gradually. Let competence compound. You will notice something subtle but profound. As discipline increases, fear decreases because you know you can rely on yourself. And when you can rely on yourself, the world feels less threatening. You are not waiting for perfect conditions. You are prepared for imperfect ones. And that is what freedom truly is. Not the absence of constraint, but the strength to choose your path within it. If you cannot control your morning, you cannot control your destiny.